Okay, this is Black Thought. We're back, and I'm your host, Dr. Hutchinson. This is a great day, great conversation that we have been having so far with the superintendent of the Achievement School District, Mr. Chris Barbic, Ms. Malika Anderson, and now we have with us two fantabulous guests. We have Pastor Ralph White from the Bloomfield Full Gospel Baptist Church and Mr. Kenneth Lee. They are here because they have been part of the movement to save Carver High School from closure. As you know, Shelby County Schools, and let's set this issue up, Shelby County Schools have decided and have targeted several schools for closure. This happened before the ASD made their announcement. So this really, in many ways, is a separate issue. They charted these places for closure, and they have said that by December, they would come to a conclusion. What also happened during that time is that since Carver High School is in the bottom 5% of performing schools in the state of Tennessee and in Memphis, they were also targeted by the ASD. And so now what you have is, depending on what side of the fence you sit on, a perfect storm. You have a situation where the school is targeted for closure by Shelby County Schools, and now the ASD is considering taking over the school because of where it is in its performance. And so because of that issue, because of that reason, I've asked Pastor White and Brother Lee to be here today, and Mr. Barbic was coming during his monthly visit anyhow. So it's best, I could have conversation about the situation at Carver High School. As Pastor White can attest, I've been to every meeting except one. So I could intelligently talk about it, but I thought it was best to have the persons that have the most interest. Pastor White was born in that community. Pastor White is pastoring in that community. Pastor White knows that community. Pastor White's a Carver graduate. So I thought it was best for him and Mr. Barbic and all of the persons involved to have dialogue here at Black Thought about the issue of Carver High School and how it fits in this new equation with the ASD. So I'm going to yield at this time to Pastor White and the Brother Lee, kind of shape for us what you see. And also, one of the things I want you to do is talk about, you probably don't have time to talk about all of the plan, but you all have come up with a comprehensive plan on how the high school can be saved from closure. And then after that, we can talk about, Mr. Barbic is here, perfect person to talk to, about what it would mean and what may be some of your positive and or critiques of the school going in the ASD. So I'm going to yield to you.
Thank you, Pastor Hutchinson. Glad to be here with you guys. We've met early on in the week, first time meeting you. Let me say, first of all, you are familiar with some of the situations that we've been dealing with as it relates to Carver, and Mr. Lee is going to elaborate in just a moment. I know we don't have time to go into all that we've done. We've been meeting almost all year. As a matter of fact, maybe 5 months ago, we gave a proposal to the now superintendent, and we were hopeful that this would be disseminated throughout the board and they would look at it. And when we left him, we were pretty sure that, hey, this is what they need, because there's been dialogue going on, but not with us. There have been meetings, but not with us. So they've been meeting about us and for us, but without us. And so we come to this point. We think we've presented a good proposal because they want to see how keeping Carver would be cost efficient, and we can move on. And that did not happen after meeting this past Thursday night, whereas we were looking for the superintendent to come with some positive news. He did not. He only elaborated on the negatives that we have to eliminate through our proposals, and that was the perception from the community. Well, hey, this school is done, we just need to bury it. And then we come up with your announcement, and we feel it was very unfair to us, to the community, and they did not act in good faith. So these are the kinds of meetings that are going on throughout the process. The community is totally confused about the school issue. if we had not been on top of it, keeping up with groups and state and all that, we wouldn't have known. So you have a ball of confusion in the community, and we've been talked to, but not talked with. And so just briefly, Mr. Lee is going to just briefly go over some of the things that we propose to save Carver and actually save money for the system. We know there are problems, but when we can come up with solutions to problems, okay, we should say, let's put this aside and let's work with it. That did not happen. Now, what you guys are doing in the state is what you do. So you're not the enemy. And we need to come together and say, okay, why are we here? And why did we not bring resolve early on based upon the information that we have? So just briefly, Mr. Lee, he's done an awesome job and putting together stats and figures.
Yeah, they asked initially for a proposal, and I think that's more of a political move. You ask for a proposal, and normally the proposal doesn't come. So what we did, we offered two proposals. Both proposals asked for enlargement of the attendance boundary. There was a school closed, Southside High, about 6 or 7 years ago, okay? When they closed Southside High, we expected to get part of that attendance. We got less than 5% of the attendance. All of that entire area was shifted east to Hamilton, right, which of course didn't help the utilization rate at all. Okay, that was the first issue. Second issue is the long lines that were initially drawn all of a sudden dipped toward the west, which further reduced the utilization rate. The two proposals we gave both asked for an adjustment in the boundary to assist us with the enrollment issues. The first issue also showed them how by increasing that boundary, it would take care of the utilization rate and take care of the cost effectiveness of the school. We came in with a second proposal showing that, okay, if you don't want to increase the boundary, then let's have, like Carver used to be, have a middle through high school at one facility. They were talking about closing one of our elementaries also. Instead of closing that elementary and moving them to another elementary, which would take 24, Shelby County schools have 24 schools. 24 offices in the elementary they're talking about taking them to. We discussed this with the superintendent. He wasn't even aware of that. 24 offices have to be moved out of Florida, Kansas before the consolidation can occur between the two elementaries. So we suggested having a middle to high school at the high school building and put both elementaries into the middle school area so that when the demographics change, the population change, or they increase the boundaries, that the middle school is still there. Okay, if they later decide to do something else with Florida, Kansas, it's still intact. The middle school we don't lose as an entity. So both proposals we thought were excellent. We dealt with the cost variables, and they showed exactly how much it would save if they closed Carver. We showed them by merging the two schools, not moving those 24 offices out of Florida, Kansas, keeping the elementaries together in one loop, that it actually saves them close to $700,000. Now, when we went through each one of we went through the utilization problem, went through the proficiency issues, and I'll deal with that in a second, and we dealt with the cost variables. Each one of those were tackled. When we got to the cost variables, then it was told us that, okay, well, money is really not the issue. What we found is cost may not be the issue, but the benefit that people will have by closing us, okay? We feel several things. We feel that...
When you say benefit,
the
what
benefits
do you mean?
are severalfold. One is, if you close the school, you kill the community. That's automatic. That's automatic. Several things were done in the interim to actually force the utilization down. Last May, the kids got their report cards on the backs of all the report cards for the entire city. Carver's entire area was zoned Booker T. Washington. Now, if you're a decent parent, you figure now the school system is saying Carver is not in existence anymore. You're going to now move your kid to another school. And so now, because of the utilization issues and because that was printed ahead of time, the utilization went down further. Many of the kids in that area are going to other schools because of these type of issues. And so the utilization is not an issue. There's plenty of kids there. Even we, just throw in the gutting of the Alsea and the Corey and the Norris area. That entire thoroughfare, is pending closure of all 3 schools. And so we feel that the gutting of the community is not good for the city. The contention was that everybody's moving out east. But when I looked at the history of the 29 high schools in the city, there's only 3 schools that have had any type increase over the 7 years, which means people are not moving out east, they're moving out. And so we've given 2 great proposals, which deals with each one of those issues. The utilization, the proficiency of the school. The proficiency of the school, it didn't just occur on the high school level, and you already know, we're having problems on the elementary level.
Absolutely.
Okay, now they've done a great job with putting a middle school principal in that's proven to correct those type of issues, which is excellent. But we were losing those kids in the elementary level, and most of the kids that were failing were coming through the same teachers with very little classroom management skills. So our problem has been not the kids, the problem has not been the community, the problem has been the people that those kids have been placed in the hands of. And so now the community is coming in, we're being penalized, we're being punished for things that the system was, that's their responsibility to educate the kids, to make that link and what have you. And so the proposals are excellent. We've spoke to Mr. Porter and at length, and Mr. Porter also received one of the proposals but had not even viewed it before our meeting. And so to us, this is an insult for us to give you not 1 but 2 proposals, and those proposals not even be absorbed. Even if you hadn't read it, at least skim it before the meeting.
And Mr. Porter is Chief of Staff?
Chief of Staff now, which
For Shelby County
individual, he
Schools.
used to be over our
He was a board
area.
member.
Exactly. And so there's a lot of things happening behind the scenes that we don't feel are proper. The proposals are in, at least read the proposal before you say no. And if you come before us and we deal with some of the things on proposal, you have no insight as to what's even on the sheet of paper. We met with the superintendent May 22nd, offered him the same proposal, went through all the details. We spoke on Carver being the school of the year. We spoke of Carver being the athletic director being the athletic director of the year. We spoke on the baseball team being in the city championship every year. Softball team, my God, last year was 21-1. They lost only in the sub-state. The volleyball team, just on and on, all the great things happening at Carver. And so I think Carver, the legacy is excellent. The community is wrapped and intertwined around that school phenomenally. And so I just want to let you know, we're here and we would love to continue here. We're considering the Izone scenario as well, just trying to determine where we're going to fit into this equation.
Mm-hmm.
And let me step in real quick. Mr. Barbic, I want to give you an opportunity, and Ms. Anderson as well, to respond to what they've said. And let me also ask you to do this on the tail end of your comments. Talk to us about what Carver would look like if the ASD took it over. I mean, you have the charter organization coming in. What would they do? Because one of the reasons, I'm just going to telegraph where I'm going with this. One of the reasons I'm asking this question, Mr. Lee just alluded to a school with a proud tradition. Mm-hmm. So now, do you keep the name? Do you keep the mascot? Do you keep the tradition? Do you keep all of that? Do you just change the modus operandi, how you deal with policy and structure, but do you keep the bones of the school? I mean, just
sure.
Those are some of the issues that when people hear ASD and hear takeover initially hit their mind. So
Sure.
kind of respond to what they've said, and then help us with that piece, and then I'll just let the both groups, you all dialogue from there, because that's kind of what I'm hearing people thinking.
Sure. Well, actually, I want to start with that first. So,
Okay.
And just to be clear for everybody, no schools that we've taken and are working with, has there been ever planned to change the name, mascot, or colors? And for the high schools, for Fairleigh or for Carver, none of that would change. Name would stay the same if we were in the school. Mascot would stay the same if we were in the school. Colors would stay so, to me, this isn't about coming in and trying to replace everything that's there. It's trying to take the assets that currently exist, and one of those assets is the rich tradition of a school, especially a lot of the high schools that we're talking about, and to build on that foundation to make it better. What we don't want to do is come in and throw the baby out with the bathwater. That would be a bad approach, and that is why I think taking these next several months to really better understand what are the assets and what aren't allows us to do that. If we were just to come in and say, hey, we're doing this, get out of the way, we're going to cram this down your throat, that wouldn't work. It just wouldn't work. And that's purposely why we've chosen not to take that tack. So, I just want to be clear with everybody that that's not part of the plan. And I guess the last thing I'd say, and then if you want to talk a little bit about, what this could look like, this is extreme. Like what you just went through is extremely helpful for us. As again, we're trying to gather input, and I think there's an advantage to us being at the state level because sometimes ignorance is bliss a little bit, right? So the fact that we haven't gotten down into all the local stuff, and we can stay a little bit above that, and not above meaning we're better, but just separate from it, I think allows us to enter this conversation and really have people be open-minded. The last thing to do is stand here and try and defend or talk about anything Shelby County has done. That's not my place. And I've gotten to know Dorsey. I think it was a great decision for him to be the Sup. I think he's got an incredibly difficult job, and my interactions with him have been nothing but positive. But so for me to stand in here and respond to, I think wouldn't be appropriate for me to do that. But what I do hope we can do is move forward with the opportunity to sit down and have a conversation. The last thing I'd say, and then if you want to talk a little bit about what this could look like, is I think the opportunity is to take the plans that you have, right, and to sit down with a different listening ear and potentially come up with a solution. I mean, what's basically happened this past year, Carver was being run by Memphis City Schools. Carver's now being run by Shelby County. So in some ways, what we're proposing is already happened once. When MCS came off and Shelby County was put on as running the school, the earth didn't crash into the sun, and we all woke up the next day and everything was okay. And we have an opportunity, and it may or may not be the right one, but there is an opportunity to have another group running that school that can sit down, gather community input, listen to the plan, and we see this as a potential opportunity to keep the school open. And so what we would hope is that there's an open mind from the community as we sit down and have that conversation. And what I can commit to is it won't take 5 months. And what I can commit to is that we're gonna roll up our sleeves and have a conversation. And at the end of the day, we're going to make the decision that we think is best. But that's how we're going to operate. And to me, this is the beginning of that conversation.
But now I know we're getting ready to send it to Ms. Anderson, but I have to ask a question based on some of what you said, because I know this is probably one of the questions that they would ask you. When the school is taken over, when the charter organization comes in, the modus operandi, or at least the assumption, let me put it that way, is that they come in just like corporate America. We're going to hire our own staff. Everybody has to reapply. Now, I've heard it said through the grapevine, because some of the schools on this list, as I told you off air, was probably one of the worst kept secrets in Memphis. Because of the nature of this city, it floats. So, a lot of people heard what was happening. One educator said to me, matter of fact, I talked to a couple of principals, and they said that based upon how things have gone in the past, if you have a situation where there's a takeover and the principal's been there less than 2 years, then the principal gets to stay. I believe the principal at Carver has been there 1 year, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
This is her second year.
Yeah. So I think she would be able to stay, but the staff would have to reapply, because now you've left, and we've had this conversation before, you've left one district and now you're going into the employ of another. So because of that, you'd have to, reapply, because you're not in Shelby County schools anymore.
Right.
You're in the state system. So kind of talk to that, and then Ms. Anderson, so that I don't jump in again. Just jump in, but go right ahead.
Well, I mean, what you said is true. If this were to happen, actually everybody would have to apply for a position because it's a different employer. Now, what's happened in the past is that there have been, several teachers and folks that have stayed on, have applied, and been either job offers have been made to. Some have chosen to do other things. Some have chosen to work with us. The opportunity is to, and the opportunity that we feel is very important, is that a leader needs to be able to build their own team. A leader needs to be able to have teachers in the school that believe in that leader, believe in the mission and the vision that leader has, and believes in the kids. And I think in the past, the system has been set up in a way where folks get thrust upon leaders, folks get put into a school where they may or may not believe in the principal, may or may not believe in the vision, and most importantly, may or may not believe the kids can actually learn. And we don't think that's a formula for success. So this provides an opportunity for folks to do that. And I guess the last thing I'd say on that is that, in the Izone, it works very similarly. I mean, when schools go into the Izone, they basically fresh start the school, meaning that everybody is moved out and the new staff's brought in. And so I think there's the chance that would happen either way. And as far as we know, has the district announced the Izone schools yet?
They have. They've announced 5 schools in the Izone.
And Carver's not on the Izone.
No, they had Melrose and
Hamilton.
Yeah.
So, as far as we know, and again, those are district decisions, that the iZone's not an option right now. So I think, the way we see it is the option is either for the school to potentially come into the ASD, right now, if everything were to move forward, the school, looks like would be on the closure list, unless something changes, and so those are the assumptions we're operating with as we move forward, and as we talk to folks in the community, that's how we're kind of painting the scenarios. So, do you want to talk a little bit about what this could potentially mean? Yeah.
I want to give some more information about the teacher piece, and then talk a little bit about what stays the same, in addition to the name and so forth. When the teachers apply for the positions that Green Dot will offer in the school, every single one of them is guaranteed an interview. And only those who interview have the potential of being offered a position. And so we are encouraging all of the teachers who want to stay in the school, we know that they are very committed to student success, to apply for a position. Everyone will be offered an interview. Something else that's really important for us to clarify in terms of what stays the same, in addition to the Cobras and the red and white, is all the students stay the same. Mm-hmm. When Carver High School is matched with Green Dot, every single student who is currently zoned to attend the school remains zoned to attend the school. So they have guaranteed spots. We're not changing the students because we agree there's nothing wrong with the students in the community, right? We are turning around the school, not turning out kids. So when we do welcome, if we do welcome Carver High School into the district based on community input, the students will stay the same. Teachers will be encouraged to apply for positions at Green Dot. The name, the mascot, the rich tradition of athletics and so forth will remain the same. What changes is the way in which the team works together with Green Dot, the team meaning the teachers, the support staff, the school leader, the students, and I think most importantly, the parents, work together with Green Dot to address the academic challenges that students have to get them where we know they can be, which is in the top 25%. And they might do that via extending the school day, extending the school year. They have wonderful intervention programs and emphasis on reading. But all of the information about what Green Dot will do in partnership with the community, we can talk about that on Monday night at the community meeting that we're holding at Carver High School from 5:30 to 7. 5:30 to 7 on Monday. Okay. We want parents, community members, church members, teachers, students to come out and let us know what's important to keep at Carver High School and what questions you have, and you can also ask questions of Green Dot to ask them what they have to offer.
Let me say this.
Yeah, go right ahead. I was going to ask you.
As I was listening, you said it's either or. If we are accepted into this particular system, And if not, then Carver's on the list to be closed.
That's our understanding right now.
Okay, and we want to change that understanding because we go back to square one, where we don't feel that we were adequately, our issues were adequately addressed with the local.
Right.
And so, so we jumped from, I think I mentioned this to you, we had a plan A, B, and that's C.
That's C, that's right.
But what the system is doing is replacing our A and B and saying you got to accept C, maybe, or you will see your way out of here. And so it comes to that, and then here you guys are, they're earnest, and I like a lot of what I'm hearing, but I don't think we should be to that point. And based upon the administration, very fine person, as you said, but, I'm sure very cordial, very inviting, very intelligent, very attorney-ish. But my point is, when it comes to dealing with the issues of that school, we don't feel that we've been dealt with fairly with the local system. And so that's still our struggle.
Sure.
And dealing with, what you're presenting. So it puts us in the middle, and we don't want you to appear as adversaries.
Right.
Because understand you have the best intent for the young people, but then we do also. But ours, we're still trying to bring resolve to our first battle,
Right.
and that's with the local school system. And on that point, how long does this marriage, how long is this for? Is there a certain time period for that particular organization to take over? And are we building the school up so that it can eventually go back into the school system? How does that work? And I think we need clarity on that.
Do you want to talk about that?
Yep, so when an ASD charter is matched with a school, it is a 10-year charter, depending on performance. So if the operator is working with the community and teachers and students to bring student performance up to where we know it can be and where it has to be over the next several years, then they are provided a 10-year charter. After that, after the end of 10 years, and the school is in the top 25%, then the operator, which is Green Dot, can opt to be authorized, seek authorization via Shelby County Schools, or to remain with the Achievement School District.
It's ASD's option to opt, or
No, it's not ours.
The way the law is set up, it's a 10-year charter. So the way the law reads is, at the end of the 10 years, you have to apply to get your charter renewed. And at the renewal point, that's when the school would go back potentially to Shelby County, and Shelby County would renew that charter, and the school would become a Shelby County charter school instead of an ASD charter school.
I heard earlier it's 5 years, but it's 10.
It's 5 years if we are, so I should have maybe mentioned this in the beginning. So, excuse me, so we have 16 schools in the ASD right now. And some of those schools are schools that we run directly. So we are the district, we hire the principal, we run the school. Some of the schools are charter schools where they're still ASD schools, but we work with the charter organization and they run the day-to-day of the school, and we are the district for that school. For charter schools, it's a 10-year charter. For the schools that we run directly, and we have 6 of those up in Fraser,
It's 5 years.
it's a 5-year. And
Is there
then
no option, whereas we could say, hey, we'd like to be one of those 5-year schools so that we can apply to go back into the school system in 5 years, if in fact, in 5 years, they should be able to do what they do, or,
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
does the community have any voice in that? Saying, well, look, we consider this, but we like for our school to be a part of this for 5 years, because we want to eventually be a part of Shelby County School System.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, the way this is a legal matter, so the way the law is set up, and that was done by the legislature before any of us got here, was that the charters are 10-year charters. So I don't think there's a way to go back and amend that. I mean, at the end of the day, this was designed so that the schools eventually go back into local control. But the timeline for when that happens, it depends on who's actually running the school. And so that's how.
But now let me step in, because I hear 2 things in here that I don't know if I want to say they're troubling, but I just have concern. You kind of talked about one when you were here before, but I'm going to raise it. First thing is, and Ms. Anderson alluded to it, if in this process things are not going well with this school, it sounds like there ought to be some recourse to remove the charter or to make adjustments. That's the first thing I heard. But then the second thing I heard is troubling from this standpoint. In 10 years, when it's time for renewal, it almost sounds like the community doesn't really have that much input in the renewal unless, excuse my expression, they go down to the board and raise hell. Because the way, from what you said it's set up, the charter people apply, you know, renew their charter, and then it routes to Shelby County Schools. But it doesn't sound like there's a step in there for Pastor White and Brother Lee as representatives of community. I'll just use them because they're here to say, wait a minute, we want to have some input on this thing. You know, Green Dot, I'm using them since they're the ones that's going to operate whatever school. We like them with ABC, but in D, E, F, G, et cetera, you know, we have some issues, and maybe you want to change this thing. So I'm not hearing that. So help me with that.
When you answer the first one. So let me take the second one, and Malika would be a great person to talk about the first. So at the end of the 10 years, the charter comes up for renewal. There is some choice. I mean, the school could go back to Shelby County and apply to get renewed through Shelby County, and if that was something that, you know, over the course of time, it became very evident that that was what the community wanted, that would certainly be an option. The second option would be the school could stay in the ASD. There's a parent trigger measure that would allow the school to stay in the ASD. So if 60% of the parents said, hey, you know what, we want the school to stay as part of the ASD past the 10 years, then there would be a choice to do that too. And then within those two options, you know, as part of the renewal process, and we'll be reviewing the schools several times before it gets to the 10 years, and Lincoln can talk about that in just a second. I mean, the whole point of this is to have community input to tweak and adjust the program so that it's meeting the community need. At the end of the day, the parents and the students are the ones receiving the education, and it's the job, whoever's running the school, whether it's us or Shelby County, to take input to make the program better so that it's better meeting the needs of the kids. So that will be an ongoing process throughout the 10 years, and there'll be another opportunity at the end of the 10-year period. But that's just good practice regardless of who's running the school. I mean, you should have an open door, and like I said, the community is the customer, and we need to be making sure that we're meeting those needs and that we're doing a good job, just like any organization should. That's serving the neighborhood. So do you want to talk a little bit about the review process?
I do. I also wanted to note that what's unique about an ASD charter school is that by law we're required to have community councils. So you will have parent and community advisory capacity for the school from the get-go, from the beginning all the way through. So, you know, as I mentioned, you know, it's a 10-year charter, but we have 5 years. We're trying in 5 years to get to the top 25%, and we can't wait 10 years, and we certainly can't wait 5 years to know whether or not we've gotten there. So every year, actually twice a year, we are conducting 3 times a year, baseline, middle of year, end of year, academic, operational, school culture, and safety reviews to know where we are on track to this. And what happens is at the end of the 3rd year, we're just waiting 3 years to give them enough time to get off the ground and to redefine the school culture and set the stage for an effective learning environment. After the 2nd year, so after the 2nd year after the baseline, so 3 years in, we know for sure whether or not a school is very much on track or very far off track. And if the school is off track in terms of academic performance, they will not be allowed to continue to serve students. The whole reason we're there is to serve students at a high level. And if we're not, we revoke their right to continue to do so. So we will enter the school into a community-based school matching process to say, here is what we now understand about the school and its needs. What do you say are priorities of yours? What is the best course of action so that in the 5th year, we have an appropriate continuation plan for the school? So we're not waiting 10 years to do anything, and you'll have community voice the entire time.
My consideration is always the instructors and the principal over the institution, because they actually set the stage. Okay, yeah. I'm an athlete and I've coached. That coach sets the standard, and if you cannot maintain one commitment of the teachers, if those teachers cannot transfer and get that commitment from the students, then all is lost. So my question to you all is, what is your screening process with respect to the instructors and or the principal that you hire?
That's a decision for Green Dot to make. So Green Dot as a charter operator establishes what their criteria are. They're looking for school leaders and teachers with grit, with commitment, with relationships with students, with evidence that they have performed well, that they're able to help students move up in terms of achieving academic goals. But what we can do on Monday night, when Green Dot is in the room, is to ask them specifically what they're looking for and how closely that matches what the school has, what the teachers have to offer right now.
Okay, can I just add one thing? You know, one of the things we've done this last year is we've rolled out an incentive plan to try and incentivize the best teachers in the state to work in our priority schools. And we define best teachers in the state as level 4 and 5. So there's a rating 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 4s and 5s are your best teachers. And so what we did this past year was, if you were a level 4 or 5 teacher and you weren't working in a priority school, then we had a $7,500 signing bonus for you to come work at a priority school. If you were a level 5 teacher and you were already in that school, we gave you a $5,000 retention bonus. And so part of this is, you know, if you're going to turn the team around, you got to have players. And, you know, we want the best players working in schools where kids need them the most. Because, you know, out in the county where, you know, you may have a kid who's born on third base, you can get by with a level 3 or an average teacher, and that kid's going to be fine because the safety net for them at home is so big, they're never going to fall through. But for the kids that we're talking about, and you know, because you're in the neighborhood, that safety net's important. And we need great teachers, not just good teachers, but great teachers going into our priority schools. And so it generally what we're looking for are those level 4 and 5 teachers who can balance excellence and joy, who can be tough but know how to do love too. Because if it's all tough and no love, kids aren't going to like you. If it's all love and no tough, they're going to run over you and you can't get order and teach class. So we want to find those teachers that can balance those two things.
What is it? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because being a mentor, and I've subbed for 10 to 12 years as well, so I've been in the classroom. And until you've been in the classroom, you really don't know much about the classroom management. I'm glad you said that, because a teacher that's good on paper, necessarily, let's say in the suburbs, may not be the best teacher in the inner city, because of the needs of the kids, some of the experiences of the kids, the household buildup of the kids and what have you. So I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's going to be very important. And the experience of the teacher. They may be great. They may be only 24 years old, not much difference in the age between the student and the teacher. You may be good on paper, but can you make the link between the kids?
Right, that's key. I mean, we look for, are you smart? Do you know the content area well? Can you convey that intellect and passion to a 15, 16-year-old kid? Because if you're really smart but you can't connect, it gets lost. And if all you can do is connect but you don't know the subject matter, then you're going to have kids who feel really good about themselves but can't read, and that's not going to work either. So it's got to be both. You know, that's who we're looking for.
Let us do this. Pastor White was getting ready to say something, and I'll give you a chance, even in your question, to make final remarks, and then Superintendent Barbic will give you that same opportunity, and then we'll close. Go right ahead, sir.
I'm just concerned, you mentioned sports, arts, etc. So do they offer that balance in the curriculum?
Yes.
You know, and so these were some of the concerns. We understand many young people in the inner city, if they, academically, many of them excel, they go to college, but the majority are on athletic scholarships, music, etc. And we want to make sure that in this system that those opportunities are available for them. And I guess we can further deal with that when they're in here on Monday.
Sure. I mean, the short answer is yes. I mean, look, you know, I don't think I've stayed in as good a shape as you have, but I played sports in high school, and that's what kept me. I mean, I wouldn't have finished if it hadn't been for athletics. And so, I mean, it's extremely important. You know, for a lot of kids, that's what keeps them engaged and in school. They know they got to make grades if they're going to play. So, you know, that's important. And this can't just be about academic grind. It's got to be about joy too. And part of the joy is what are those things you're passionate about? If it's English, great, but it may be art, or it may be baseball, or it may be football. So, you know, we want to provide a really well-rounded education to our kids so that when they go off and whatever it is they're going to do, go to college, enter the workforce, that they've had a good, well-rounded experience. And a big part of that is the co-curricular activities, the athletics and the arts, and absolutely that's important.
Yeah, well, all this is good. As I'm listening, you're like dying and going to heaven.
Yeah.
Look at all these great
Well, it's
things.
all in the details. It's all in the details.
But my point is, we're not ready to die yet.
Yeah.
So while we're still down here, we're going to deal with the local issue.
Sure.
And then if we just happen to die out, we'll, just go to heaven and deal with that.
Let me translate what he just said. He wants to go to heaven and go home, but he ain't homesick.
So we really want to deal with these issues with
Yes,
the
sir.
Shelby County school system, and that seems to be to them real, there's a problem there, there's a misconnect there. And that's something we'll talk about, away from here, because what you were saying, and I can see at the end of the day that is good, but then I still have this uneasiness about, okay, it's not a part of the local school, and there are so many other things that could possibly happen. Businesses fail, and once that happens, okay, where are we? And so that becomes, I guess, as a pastor, as a parent, and all those things that concern me. So,
Look,
again,
that makes total sense.
yeah.
That
So
makes total sense.
that's where we are. It's good to get a little bit more enlightenment on what the charter school system is about. Some of them, but we've done the history on a lot of them, and those were some promises that they made and could not keep. So we just want to make sure they have a good track record, which is well and good. But we know, I worked with a large corporation for years. They were number one. But now look, there's somebody we never thought of who's number one, and they're not even number 2 or 3. So those kinds of things happen, and we don't want our children to be caught up in business.
Sure.
And that's really where we are. So I'm sure there's a good business that's going on as relates to education, but we need to make sure that at the end of the day, this is it may be your heart, but we don't know the hearts of other people. So that is our concern, and we're going to deal with some local issues here, and hopefully at the end of the day, what's right for the young people in that community, but not just Carver, but throughout the city. We've got some things that are happening that are very discouraging. We look at all the schools that have been closed or tampered with are in the inner city, are African American. And we've got other schools in the county who are untouched. That becomes an issue. 13 of them who meet some of the same criteria that are not being touched. And we look at numbers that have declined in the city, and those schools are not touched, and there are no answers. So, it becomes not just Carver, not just our issue, but it becomes a Memphis issue, and as we look, it's a national issue. And so that becomes our real concern. So I love Carver, and I'm going to make sure that if they do come in, that Mr. Lee and I own the first Carver Hall of Fame, so we want to make sure our pictures are not moved, whoever comes in. But at the end of the day, it's about all the children in all the schools. We have gang activity. We have all these things. We have displacement of children. We're talking about safety to our children, and somehow that's being overlooked by individuals who are on our local board, who some of them, if you put them out in the middle, they couldn't find their way to Carver, but they've made decisions on Carver in that community, and I think it's not right, it's not fair, and those are real issues we got to deal with.
Well, we're going to have to, I know I had said I was going to give you the last word, but we're really out of time. Real quick, if you could just recite to us and remind us where and when that meeting at Carver High School is taking place next week.
We'll do on Monday, this coming Monday, September 16th at 5:30 to 7 p.m. in Carver High School.
Okay, the reason why we repeated that is community, we want you to come out. We want you to come out and ask questions. We want you to come out and get a better understanding. Don't come out and say it's a done deal. Come out, ask your question, find out what's going on. Ask the tough questions. Don't pull back, ask your questions. One of the reasons that we had this dialogue today is because we tend to manufacture a lot of heat, but we need some light. And so what we attempted to do today is to get some light. So we had the superintendent here, and we had 2 of the major principal persons that are fighting to keep Carver High School open and alive. So this was fruitful dialogue, and I hope and I know that it will continue past this show. That was the bottom line. So,
And we had Malika.
and I was getting ready to go there too. And we have Miss Anderson, that's kind of the glue that's helping to keep all of this together. So we're grateful to all of you being present. And of course, we look forward to you coming back next month. We had some conversation also that we want to ask you about. There's some other charter operators trying to come into the area. Want to ask you some things about them, but this kind of took priority today. So we'll get to some of that, at that later time. But we're glad you're here. Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming. And it's time for us to go. So, as I always do, ladies and gentlemen, brother man, sister woman, young boy, young girl, put your mind in gear and put your thinking cap on. Peace. I just had a black thought. Put your mind in gear and put your thinking cap on.